All right, let's dive in. When you think of the Christmas story, what's the first image that comes to your mind? I bet it's something peaceful, right? Shepherds, a stable, a quiet, holy night. But what if I told you there's another version? A story that's less of a lullaby and way more of a political thriller. Today, we're unpacking the darker, more dangerous nativity story from the Gospel of Matthew. So, to really get what Matthew is doing, we have to do exactly this. We need to take that familiar, sentimental version of the story, the one on all the Christmas cards, and just kind of set it aside for a moment. Forget the gentle animals and the silent night, because Matthew's story takes us someplace completely different.
And just look at the difference when you put them side by side. It is striking. In Luke's story, you've got shepherds, angelic choirs. It's the one we all know and love. But Matthew, he throws us right into the deep end with foreign astrologers, shady political intrigue, and a paranoid, murderous king. It's a total whiplash.
Yeah, so we're leaving that familiar Christmas card scene behind and jumping straight into the jarring reality of Matthew's narrative. This isn't a story with a slow, gentle buildup. Nope, trouble starts from the very first breath.
I mean, it is breathtakingly fast. One moment a child is born, and literally the next, he's a refugee. And this isn't just a minor plot point. This is absolutely central to Matthew's message. Right from the start, this child is in danger, running for his life, which forces us to ask, what is it about this birth that so terrifies the kingdoms of this world?
And this question brings us right to the story's villain, King Herod. Now, this guy was a complicated figure. Sure, he was a great builder, kept the peace for Rome, but he was also deeply paranoid and utterly ruthless. We're talking about a man who murdered his own wife and sons. He was not about to let some rumored newborn king threaten his grip on power, not for a second. So this is where it all kicks off. This group of foreign dignitaries, the magi, just show up in the capital and ask a politically explosive question. And get this, Herod's reaction is fear. The text says he was frightened. A powerful king, terrified by news of a baby. And that fear just ripples through the whole city, setting the stage for everything that's about to happen. So this confrontation sets up the central conflict of the whole story. And it's so much more than just Herod versus a child. It's really a clash of two totally different kinds of kingdoms, two opposing worldviews, and two completely different sources of power. And this lays out the contrast so clearly. Herod's kingdom is all about the palace, top-down power, fear, secrets, and violent control. But the kingdom this child represents, it's found in a normal house. It's marked by helplessness, guided by dreams, and centered on vulnerability and truth. It is a complete reversal of everything the world tells us power is supposed to look like. And right here, you see Herod's deception in full swing. He uses the language of worship, right? Oh, I want to go and pay him homage too, but it's all a front for his murderous plans. The text specifically says he did this secretly. His power depends on deception and backroom deals, and it's all driven by that fear we talked about. Okay, so we have to talk about the most horrifying part of this story, the order to kill all the baby boys in Bethlehem. It's a deeply disturbing image, and it brings up a really critical question about history and the way we tell stories. I mean, that's the question that immediately pops into your head, right? When you hear something that terrible, you have to ask, is this a factual historical report? Did this awful thing actually happen? Well, the answer is a little more complex than just yes or no. Most modern scholars would say that while this kind of brutality was totally in character for Herod, this event probably isn't a literal historical fact. Instead, they see it as what you might call a theological story. It's a story crafted to teach us a much deeper truth about the nature of power. So here's the key. The power of this story isn't about whether or not it can be fact-checked. Its purpose is to reveal a timeless truth, that corrupt, threatened empires will stop at nothing, literally nothing, to crush anything that challenges their control. It's a pattern that is played out over and over again in history, whenever entrenched power feels the ground start to shake. All right, we've met the villain, so let's turn to the story's very unlikely heroes, the magi. Because these guys aren't just passive observers here. They become active agents of defiance against an entire empire. First, let's clear a few things up. These magi weren't kings. They were highly educated foreign astrologers. They were Gentiles, outsiders, looking for a Jewish Messiah. And the whole idea that there were three of them, that comes from the three gifts. Their famous names, like Melchior and Gaspar, that's all tradition that was added on much, much later. But when you actually look at their journey as a series of actions, you realize how incredibly courageous they were. First, they follow a star. Then they walk right into a paranoid king's palace and confront power. Then they worship a helpless child. But their most important move, well, that's still to come.
And this is it. This is their ultimate act of civil disobedience. They get a warning in a dream and they just defy the king's direct order. By choosing to go home by another road, they protect the child, they completely wreck Herod's evil plan, and symbolically, they choose a brand new path for themselves. They've been changed by this encounter.
And that choice, that decision to take another road home, is what brings this ancient story right into our lives today. It forces us to ask some pretty tough questions about where our own allegiances really lie. You know, it's easy to just write Herod off as some monster from long ago, but what's really haunting is recognizing a part of him in ourselves. That deep-seated fear of losing control, that instinct to resist change, even when that change might actually be good for us. And this really captures our own inner conflict, doesn't it? We want the cozy, comfortable Jesus from Luke's story. We want comfort and safety. But Matthew gives us a challenging Jesus, one that shows us that real change has a cost and points toward a future that will demand something of us. And if we're being honest, we too often find ourselves siding with the empire just to keep our own comfort.
So in the end, Matthew's political thriller leaves every single one of us with a choice. The story basically looks you in the eye and asks, which passport are you going to carry? Are you a citizen of Herod's kingdom, clinging to the power and comfort you know? Or will you, like the Magi, find the courage to defy that and find your way home by another road?